Hey guys, I'm Davey Wavey, creator of the gay erotic website Himeros.tv, and today I'm joined by sex and intimacy coach Finn Deerhart and his partner Sam. And today we're talking about gay sex, and in particular, harnessing the power of fantasy. So let's get started. Girl, I have a fantasy that this whole thing's over. Not the podcast. Quarantine.
Yeah.
Himeros Live is brought to you by Himeros.tv. Created by Davey Wavey, Himeros.tv is an erotic playground for gay and bisexual men with weekly explicit videos featuring authentic man-on-man action. Each video is co-created with gay sex experts to evolve your experience of sex and sexuality through pleasure, connection, and exploration. Join Himeros.tv for 20% off. That's as little as $11.96 per month at Himeros.tv/pod. That's Himeros.tv/pod. Himeros.tv. It's like porn, but better. Hey.
Yes
is right. I recognize that my voice is very polarizing, but today there were two comments on Himeros.tv. One was from someone who was like, why, like, I get that you own this fucking website, but why do you feel like you need to speak before every video? Because that's because I did the voiceover for today's video, and then I got another comment that was like, oh my god, I just love hearing your voice, it's so sexy. So it's an acquired taste, you know. I can be okay.
Isn't that really testimony to the narcissism of people's comments,
or really how annoying my voice potentially is? I don't know.
I mean,
some people are gonna love it, and some people aren't.
Fuck them.
I can appreciate though that it's like it goes either way. Like you either love it or you hate it.
Well, that's my point. I mean, the narcissism of it, meaning like, oh, what I think is like, this, you should change your videos because we don't like your voice. And someone else being like, oh, I love it. It's just like it.
I see what you're saying.
It's in the eye of the beholder. So, but they don't recognize that. They think when they offer it out that this is a golden nugget of truth, and it's not. It's their own opinion.
Yes. Yeah. But how does it feel to go through life with a voice that does not polarize people? The privilege.
I don't know. Mine might be polarizing.
I don't think it is. Yeah.
Like hating on me. Someone hates something about me, and I know that. So I have to make peace with that,
Hey, Sam, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Sam hates me a little bit this week.
How could you not, after being together for like 30 days? Are we building an arc at this point? 30 days and 30 nights. Okay, Sam, congratulations on the engagement.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, my ring is not on my finger right now.
Are we to read into that?
This is the sound of mine coming off.
You guys are locking it in, huh?
We took them off yesterday when we went to go work out. So yeah.
Did you work out in the park?
We did.
Yeah. We're climbing the fence.
Nice.
Jump roping, hopping on tables. Yeah.
You got to make it work. Also, I'm hearing a little bit of an echo with do you have the headphones nearby?
Yes, we do.
We were trying to do it bareback today, but the headphones help with the feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to switch ears so that you can. There you go.
Yeah. I like
this is good. This is good radio. Yeah.
Good.
Is this radio? What's happening? What year is it?
This is AM radio.
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to AM radio driving through Arkansas in the middle of the night? Because you really should do it. It's worth the experience.
Yeah, that's pretty specific. I don't. I may have, because I have driven cross country, and it's very religious.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah. I heard this lady talking about yoga, and she's calling it yoga, and being like the devil, the yoga.
Well, if I was that close-minded and fervently religious, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night either, and I'd probably be tuning into. I wouldn't be able to stand myself, and I'd be listening to it at 3 a.m. So, what is it like spending so much time together? How are you guys doing? This is actually a couples therapy session.
Yeah.
I'll send an invoice.
Okay.
Some days are really amazing when things are just like we're in a flow and not having our challenges that come at times. The past couple of days have been a little challenging, to be honest.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like since I'm not able to really work, it's just hard for me to. I really I find a lot of from the work that I do, I find a lot of confidence comes from that. And now that I'm not doing body work, it's like where am I putting my time and my energy? And part of it has been going towards like seeking resources from the government, and also another part of me has been doing creative projects, which have been really awesome. So yeah, it's been good to be with him and have his support, and it's also been a little bit of a challenge for me.
Yeah, I would think like when you think of your skill set and the talents you have, and then you're like using your energy to like fill out forms and paperwork, and like, that's not going to necessarily feel productive or fulfilling, right? Like, it's got to be pretty draining.
Definitely.
Yeah, right. Like, our apartment space isn't that large. And so it's like an overlap of like all these different roles all at one time. It's like boyfriends and then like coworkers and like strategizing around time needs in the house and like grocery runs and all the things, all like at one space all at once. So it requires some finesse that's like challenging. So even in the friction though, I am learning how to communicate. I'm learning what sucks for me still about communication and like my edges. So I'm gleaning from it, but
Right.
I've been really busy the last couple of days and haven't had a lot of capacity, outside of my work to be present and listen. So it just, those are things that used to would have been okay. Like I would have been away at the office and had a transition before I come home and I don't get that time. It's like, oh, hi, you're right here.
All the yeah. I've noticed that suddenly all my coupled friends have stopped posting on Facebook about how like hashtag blessed they are. They're so lucky. And like I think a lot of couples are going through it because this isn't what you sign up for. It's not, you don't sign up for 24/7.
No.
Maybe maybe eventually someday it will be when y'all retire, but that's like that's down the road. I was listening to something. It's Brene Brown, right? The vulnerability expert. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was saying that she does this check-in with her husband. You may have heard her talk about this before, where she's like, like you don't always have, if a marriage is a whole part is like 100, like you don't always have 50 to contribute to it. Like ideally it's like everyone's bringing 50 to the table. So 50. Okay, great. It equals 100. She's like, some days you just fucking wake up and you've got 20. And so she checks in with her partner. She's like, honey, all I've got today is 20. Can you make up the difference? And sometimes he says, yeah, I can give 80 today. And then sometimes he's like, no, honey, I got 22. and she knows those are the days that are really going to be difficult. And so they like clear their calendar. They like give themselves distance. If they have things scheduled, they cancel it to try to accommodate for it. But for you, what's that?
It's just brilliant, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it requires a lot of really honest communication. How have you guys been navigating so much time together? Because like on one hand, I feel like it'd be so cool. It's almost like, oh my God, like we've have like a month to just like hang out and we don't always get to see each other and you're spending time with someone you love. And then on the other hand, like even the most wonderful person can get annoying after day 3000 of quarantine, which is I think what day we're on. So how have you guys been navigating that?
Well, we've done a lot of like working out in the park. We're really fortunate to have a park across the street so we can get outside. He takes long walks, with the dog. And I think for me, because I'm trying to orient towards it with a sense of like learning and really am trying to cultivate an appreciation of it. I think a lot of times we have these needs that we can't identify. We just expect things to be met. And so, this idea of like, oh, you're annoying is really a reciprocal kind of like thing in me that's like, what do I need right now? If he's being quote unquote annoying, that there's something that I need that I'm not either able to identify, so I'm going to project, or I'm not able to ask for it, which happens a lot with me. Like I just start to assume like he knows what I need and he needs to do it now. And but like it's making me have to deal with that.
Is like what you might need, like just some quiet space for you to read a book or something.
Yeah. And just even asking for that can be hard for me sometimes, to be like, I appreciate you want to talk to me and I can't be here right now for that. And I have a hard time asking for that.
I think it would be hard to hear that too, like from someone that you love, of them, because you can read into that, like, I don't like you, like right. And it really has nothing to do with the other person.
Yeah.
It'd be equally hard to receive
grow, because I like have to look, I can't escape. Like I was kind of an asshole last night with some stuff, and it was just because I was at my capacity. I was like out of energy to be present, and I wasn't my best self. And so, I mean, there's no denying that. So I didn't really have anywhere to storm out or go somewhere else. It's like, well, you're sitting across the room from me. I have to like be in it, engage with it, come to a sense of clarity, and then learn from it.
And for me, I think like what I've really tried to do lately is, rather than react, really try and respond. And I'll take my time to kind of feel like what I'm actually processing, and put myself in his shoes and think of ways in which I can help him kind of come into my world and see what I'm going through, and vice versa. And as we did that last night, like we sat and talked after having dinner, I think we both like softened, and he was like, hey, can I just like rub your head? And I laid down and he massaged my head and my neck and played music.
Your pussy and your crack, man.
Yeah. That's our number one song. Yeah. No.
There's also this like irony in that, Finn, what was it, like 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, when Sam was away for like, how long were you away for, Sam? A month or something?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
So a little over like a month.
Yeah. Like how much like Finn missed your physical presence, and
I missed
like,
it.
Yeah, like I can't wait to be together again. Well, bitch, you got it. You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to imagine, like, even when I have company here, like, but I love having people visit, but I always realize by the end of it, I really also appreciate my alone time, my downtime. So I can't imagine being in quarantine with someone for a month. And I think being on my own through all this, I've really kind of enjoyed my downtime, and every day I like work in a nap at some point. And I think before quarantine, I was already an old soul, but now I'm like fully 87 years old. And like
reincarnated again.
Yeah. Like I'm living my best elderly life at 36 and loving it.
I really think, though, I really believe, like, I think I've quoted this before, but essentially, like, a fish doesn't know it's wet until it's out of water. So there's a vantage point that I am seeing for me, and some of the tools that I like work with other couples on, I'm having to really engage. I'm not just saying this to put a silver lining on it. Like, I think in a couple where you have a relative sense of safety, because I know people are experiencing violence in their relationships, which is a whole nother story. But when you have safety and you're having conflict, it's really growth trying to happen. And that's what's happening for me. And it's a great opportunity to learn about like what I even need and how do I, I really struggle to communicate. Wow. Isn't that interesting? It's not Sam's fault. These are my, why can't I just look him in the eye and be like, yeah, I really appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and take time for myself right now. I'll be back. I'm like, I'm 40 years old. I can do that sometimes. So
yeah. And if you don't ask for that stuff, then you're doing dishes and like someone like breaks a dish and it just comes out, and it will find a way to express itself in one way or another. I saw a quote that I really love. Finn, I texted you this earlier. In the rush to return to normal, use this time to consider what parts of normal are worth rushing back to. Do you think that this experience is going to fundamentally, this is for both of you to weigh in on, do you think that this experience is going to fundamentally change like humanity, people, or do you think that when this is all done, we're just going to snap back to the way things were? Like say like 2 years from now, are we going to be in a different place than the way that we were, which I think was like largely living kind of unconsciously, collectively, like as society. Did I phrase that right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I hope so. You know, I think we have been living out of balance, and like what's happening now is like showing that. And if things were just to like go back to normal right away, I'd be like, what is wrong with all of you? Like, did you not see like what happened when we actually took a break and like gave nature that pause that it really needed? And learn from it, you know, because if we just go back to living the way we have been, something else is going to happen. And it's just going to continue to repeat itself, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, you know, I used to read a lot. I was in anthropology, you know, there's like just so many perspectives that would like, they can lean towards doomsday, you know, like carrying capacity, we're way past carrying capacity. All systems, you know, have leveling mechanisms built into the ecosystems. And so like in nature, that just happens naturally. And we just don't even think about it, you know, like if there's an overpopulation, then starvation hits and everything's back to normal. So I think a lot of people are going to learn from this. I really do, because I already see people learning from it and waking up. And then I think probably a lot of people are going to want to rush back to what they had before too. I mean, for me, I am being affected. It's making me ask a lot of questions about myself and my life and my destiny and like my relationship to the world and the environment, like all kinds of things. So I hope people do.
I think a certain percentage of people are going to be changed by this. And I agree. I've seen the change in you. And I think the longer it goes on, probably the bigger that percentage will be. Like if everything were to snap back tomorrow, I can see a lot of people just being like, oh, that was just a little hiccup along the way. But if it stretches on for months, I mean, it's hard to not be impacted in both ways that are like profoundly good and profoundly challenging for people.
Totally.
I mean, I'm in the process of planning. We don't have another project until July now, the end of July. We've had to kind of shift things around. And I'm planning for like a retreat that we're going to do in Hawaii in November, and thinking about the relationship that people are going to have with touch, like on the other side of this, and how almost like PTSD or collective trauma we're going to have around like even just hugging someone. Letting alone sucking their dicks.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. And I think that for my line of work and Sam's too, I mean, I feel like people really are going to need so much more. So it's in a sense, assuming that things are in a way that I can connect with people anytime soon, there will be a need for this work so much. There already is. And then like a deeper level of like healing for people.
There's going to be a massive need for it. Yeah. And even planning that retreat for Hawaii, initially our intention in it was to show like a diverse group of men, like to show different flavors of sexiness. And that still is part of it. And we are going to have a really diverse group of guys. But what we realized is, and we cast this project, you know, months ago, or several weeks ago, at least, before all of this was happening, almost every single person, potentially every single person that we're considering has their job involves touch, whether they're like chiropractors, body workers, massage therapists, musicians, like where they're using their hands, a builder, like everyone like does their work through their fingers.
Tactile, texture.
Yoga instructor is one of the guys. And it, to me, it seems like, okay, like this is clearly like there's something here, and we're going to need, like, I can't make ventilators or masks, but like I can create content where in some other capacity, we're going to be like a little bit on the front lines of teaching people how to reconnect with each other and themselves at some level.
And what is vulnerability? You know, what shape does vulnerability take after all this? You know, that's one thing around touch. Like it does make, it will change people.
Yeah.
I don't know what that change will be, but
I don't know that I've been changed yet, just to be completely like honest. I don't know. I realized I'm more adaptive than I thought. Like I had a rough first couple weeks, like adjusting to my new routine. To now, I feel like I'm right at my baseline. And the rest of the stuff I already knew. I knew that I loved my alone time, pepper with a little bits of human interaction here and there. I knew that I thrive when I'm living small and simply. We've talked a little bit about this in regards to potential future endeavors. So I don't know. I don't think I've had this like lightning bolt moment yet or some fundamental shift, but
maybe it's just like a subtle thing, like a plant growing, you know, like you don't really witness the growth, but you can like step away and come back and be like, oh my God, this plant's so big now.
Yeah. Maybe. So it has affected the work that I've been doing. Last weekend, we filmed our first quarantine video, kind of in person. I went with the camera guy who lives near me down the street to a house where there's a couple quarantining together. And so we like maintained, it wasn't even 6 feet. We maintained like 10 feet of space. We had masks on, and we were going to film them through their window in their bedroom. But they had this beautiful patio, like full of plants. So they went out on their patio, and from like the other side, we shot across the patio, and it was really pretty. And I think when we release it, I don't know that the story around it is going to be, oh, this was like done while these guys were in quarantine. I think that storyline, this might not come out for a month and a half or 2 months. Like, I think we're all going to kind of experience fatigue around quarantine at a certain point. And I did an interview with them afterwards, and we like hung a mic over them so we could get audio. And they said that it's always been their fantasy to create porn, and that they don't see guys that look like them in porn. They're both in their 60s, I think maybe late 60s. One of the guys is a double amputee who uses a wheelchair. And they talked about like what they want to see in porn, and how they embodied that through the video that we shot. And so I think it might be just this kind of fantasy that these guys have that we brought to life. And I don't know that quarantine's even going to be an element in the story, other than that's how we, it's the time that we captured it. So it was pretty cool to watch them. Very passionate, very connected sex. They've been together, I think, 3 years, which is probably why they still have a lot of fire in their sex. And with both of them being in their late 60s, I just kind of realized how infrequently we see men of that age in porn. And like, they're both really sexy guys, and just how a body at 60, 68, whatever, that like just looks different. And how like your skin is different, your posture is different, the way your weight is carried is different. And also that one of the guys was a double amputee. Like, I didn't realize all the really interesting positions that they were going to get themselves into. Like, it was both hot and like interesting. So I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Yeah.
How did you come across them?
So there's a couple guys there's like a baiter community in Palm Springs, like a masturbation community. And I reached out to a contact there, and I asked him if he knew of any couples that were quarantining locally that would be up for something like this. And he's like, well, there's only one couple that I know that still has sex. And so he put me in touch with them.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see that, and I'm sure it'll be quite just seeing people who've been together that long having sex together. The connection probably is really deep in that. So
How long have you guys been together?
4.5 years.
yeah.
Has the sex that you guys, maybe this is too personal and you can tell me to shut up. Has the sex that you guys have, has that evolved over the course of the 4 years?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
From what to what would you say?
I would say from more projection to more authenticity, and
definitely more exploration too. I feel like as there's more of a trust and safety that's developed, it's like, yeah, I'll try that. Why not?
Yeah. And it's like a mirror to break down stuff, like it's kind of like what I was describing around conflict. I think it's how we orient to it. So if like I'm looking to him every day to like thrill me in this kind of way, like candy, like, yeah, he can, because I really love him and appreciate him. I love his body and all that. But it's also like this mirror to like look into my own inhibitions. And so as I've grown with him, I've opened up so much and can express more in myself that I couldn't before, which is invaluable to me. So that's been a big product of being committed to him.
I suspect that you've had to work at that, because I think it could be just as equal. Like, I could also see you saying like, look, the more you know someone, actually, the harder it is to like try something new and to say, hey, there's this thing that I might be into, and like risk having your partner use that against you or laugh at you or
totally. Yeah, like risk the safety, right? Because like really hot sex includes like an element of risk taking for ourselves. Right. We need that. And so if we're like and we get into cycles where we're leaning so much into like sturdiness and structure and like, predictability, that like we have to break it somehow. And sometimes that's when conflict does happen with us, and it like helps rebalance things. But yeah, for me, like I wouldn't trade it for anything, even the down times, because I have learned a lot and I do feel more free on the inside than I used to.
And having like the connection that we have, I feel like it's not like I don't look at other guys and like fantasize or have like some part of me that's interested in what that might be like if I were to explore sex with them. And we've had experiences where we've opened that up and explored that. And what I've realized from those experiences is how much like I desire him and the quality of the connection that I have with him over some idea that I have with some random person I don't even know that looks a certain way.
You all are gonna fuck after this, aren't you?
I hope. I hope.
And you can still, and there's also fun ways to. What does Finn always say? It's both and. Like, there's fun ways to. I mean, we're going to be talking about fantasy today, and ways to incorporate that. Before we get to that video, I have some housekeeping notes. Episode 2 of Journeys is on YouTube, heavily censored. Each Monday, I'm releasing a edited version of Journeys for people to watch. So I haven't had a chance yet to see what the comments are, but you can check those out. I also posted an interview with JP Dubois on my second YouTube channel. He's a doll. You should check it out. It's really fun. It's one of the interviews we did while Finn and I were in France.
Oh yeah.
Which also feels like a different lifetime.
It does.
Right now.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
I used to get on planes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever do that again.
It's a different world. I can't even imagine. All right, so let's talk about this week's video titled Fantasy Journey. You guys can watch a free preview on Himeros.tv. In the video, Dalton Briggs and Pierce Paris are in bed talking about a fantasy, or I think it might have been a dream that Dalton had, where they were hooking up in the backseat of a vintage car, and Pierce was wearing a vintage wrestling singlet. Mm-hmm. And as they talk, we as the viewers get to see this fantasy come to life. And Dalton and Pierce, there's some blowing and some rimming and some jerking, and it's all done in the backseat of a 1966 Lincoln Continental. It's pretty dreamy to watch. It's also a video that we filmed 2018.
Yeah, October 2018.
And it's interesting, I think, for me just as a producer to see how our content has shifted since then. I think it's a really cool video. It's very pretty. And it is hot, but like, you know, back then we didn't have audio people working on set. So like, I would have loved to hear the noises the guys are making. But it's more kind of like music video-y. Like there's music that plays and lots of slow motion. So
smoke blowing around like a Beyonce video.
yeah, it is really cool. There's a quote too. There's a voiceover that Finn wrote, and there's a quote in it that says, "Fantasy transforms the friction of sex into something magical." Did you write that, Finn, or was that borrowed from someone else? Or
no, I wrote that.
Yeah, you're such a good writer.
Thank you.
Transforms the friction of sex into something magical.
Thank you. Yeah.
What did you want people, Finn, to get out of this video back when you wrote it, which you may have even written the concept in probably 2 years ago?
Yeah, I wrote it a while back. I mean, honestly, the thing about the friction of sex, really, like it's our imagination that transforms the act of sex into something meaningful for us. And so what I wanted guys to get from this is the intentional use of fantasy. I think there's a lot of times I hear, there's this perception of like, oh, that's just fantasy, as if like fantasy is different from real life. And I guess in a way it is, because it's not concrete, but it's actual the projection of your imagination happening all the time. And that's just as real as like your own beliefs about yourself, or, it's part of your emotions. And the thing is, it's just a different language. It's not always to be like literalized. It's a symbolic narrative, and it means stuff about you emotionally. So in the context of this video, it's two men sharing that intentionally so that they can kind of go on this little journey with each other. Because a lot of times when I wrote this video, actually, I was working with a lot of clients that were husbands that were like kind of blocked in their own erotic expression with each other, and come to find out they're not talking about their fantasies with each other. They're not sharing about their desires. And then they wonder why they're feeling kind of this like stuck impasse with each other, where there's like maybe 3 or 4 things that they're doing. So in opening up that language and that dialogue and going with each other into these worlds and places that exist within our own imaginations, it really helps guys normalize their experience. It helps them open up to each other and enjoy more sensation and pleasure. So and the thing is, it's intentional. And Sam and I actually do this, but kind of frequently. We haven't done it in a while, but it's something I really enjoy. It's like, we're going to fantasize right now on purpose. That's different than like you're having sex and you notice that you're fantasizing. You're not really fully there with the person. I think that's a different kind of maneuver. But this is like, we're going to do this because we want to go somewhere, and we're going to go together, and you just play with each other. And for me, it's such a turn on to hear him talk about stuff that turns him on. I get like shaky sometimes, and my breath is like it's like, it really drives me kind of wild. So, and I learn a lot, because it's information, because I'm like, I can learn from that, like qualities, emotions, feelings, and things that he needs and that really get to him. So I can internalize that and produce it in my own way.
So like I have a fleshlight that I use, and when I use it, I am fantasizing. Like, I'm not thinking, oh, this fleshlight feels good.
Right. You're not my lips to look at.
Yeah. I'm like thinking about someone that I've fucked or someone that I want to fuck. Mm-hmm. And like there's some narrative that's going on in my head. The idea of sharing that with my partner or someone, like mm-hmm. to just be so honest, like this is what I'm fantasizing about while I'm doing it. It seems so terrifying to do that. Like, and I guess hot, but terrifying.
Well, it is for a lot of people, because I mean, that's testimony to like our cultural attitudes about sex, right? We don't feel so terrified to talk about like, what I really want is a hamburger or something, it's like, right. But we're so scared to talk about our inner wantings. And part of that's because our most luscious desires really kind of put us in contact a lot of times with the friction between who we like present ourselves to be in the world and then like what we really want kind of thing. So I think it's good work. And right now during the COVID thing, I'm hearing some really cool stuff around this. Like guys are opening up to each other, and this is a way that they can have a lot of fun, like on virtual sex with each other, because like you're jacking off with a guy, but if you're actually like talking and like sharing and like that's really fun, because then it like paints a broader picture than besides like, oh, I'm sitting here looking at my phone,
Right.
you know, like.
I will say though, on like a hamburger, if you're fantasizing with a flesh jack and like you're describing, a hamburger doesn't have anything to do with your partner, you know,
Right.
and if you're fantasizing about someone else's hole, like you have to be in a place where you can like, you know, be honest about that and not have your partner freak out.
I hear that. But when I hear that too, though, that I'm also like, it's like the quality of like what that experience opens up in the other person too. So like, you know, hearing about someone else's whole could be like, okay, yeah, that's a physical experience, but also it could be like an experience of like him feeling good about himself in a certain way that's, you know, easy for him to imagine in that situation, but tougher to imagine with me, or vice versa. Like I have those sorts of things too. So I think of it flexibly. I think people need to.
I think that I need more fantasy in my sex life when I'm with a partner, because in every relationship that I've had, well, first of all, I've had a lot of sex with a lot of people, and I think like the newness and novelty has been something that I've really enjoyed and probably have gotten used to. Like that's almost become my normal. And obviously, when you're having sex with the same person over and over again, like that novelty starts to wear off. And for me, the sex starts to get tired. And so my inclination in past relationships has been kind of to have less and less sex. And I think a lot of couples fall into that. But for me, like what I'm seeing in this video and what I'm hearing from you is that there's like fantasy. One of the ways that it can be magical is to kind of inject some of that newness into a relationship by fantasizing about different places and people, and it can bring some of that novelty back.
It totally. Yeah, it can.
It really has done that for me, because I can relate to that idea of novelty and that being really exciting and stimulating. And it's been interesting to notice how like there's been times throughout a relationship where I've just kind of been a little more shut down sexually with Finn, and then I'll go and be outside and there's this new person that I have no idea anything about this person, but maybe the way that they look in that moment just sparks something in me. And I really like how, as I notice that in myself and I'm able to kind of open up about that process with him, it's allowed me to just get a better understanding as to what's happening internally for me as I am kind of turning myself off in ways when I'm in the past when I've been with Finn, and then turning myself on when I'm outside with somebody that I don't even know. And it takes work in relationship, especially long-term relationship, to continue like stoking that fire between the two of us. And this is one way that we get to do that with each other. And it can be really fun and kind of awkward at times and clunky, but it's like when I hear him say something, it's like it allows me to unlock something else in me, and we just kind of ride that with each other, and it's really fucking hot. So
yeah, and you know, the idea, like a lot of couples do lose fire, but it's not because that they're losing novelty in the other. A lot of times it's they're like really losing novelty in their own selves and how they show up, and like, you know, maybe they're avoiding sex because they have, you know, resentment that they're not sharing about. So like, no, or like they want to hold the control, or they're feeling out of control in certain ways in the relationship. So they like hold back on the sex, or they have negative anticipation about it because they're worried about their body. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, you know? And so, that will affect the sex in the relationship. So a lot of times it doesn't even have anything to do with that. You get kind of codependent, and then, you know, doing this fantasy walk kind of thing introduces this element of risk again. Cause it's like, you know, if he tells me about someone that he's fantasizing about, I have like a real experience of like, oh, you're not mine. Like you have so the thought, so it introduces risk and distance, and like that makes some space for fire, like it allows it, and you have to be, secure to do that, I think. But if you're not secure, that's also a starting point too.
Right. Well, yeah, it's interesting, the security of it, because like Sam, you were saying, it takes work to stoke that fire, but it also takes work to be able to hear those fantasies and not freak out, to be secure enough in yourself and your relationship and I think, truthfully, like, most couples are probably not there that they could,
I agree.
So
No, I agree. I've had couples that have been together for 10 years and still they don't even talk about it. And even if they have an open relationship, and they're functioning in that way, and in some ways that's really working for them, they still feel a disconnect and a lack because they're not bridging back together with the communication about what that's doing for them, like the aliveness that they're feeling. They're kind of like, I can't talk about it with him.
What I'm hearing from you, though, is that it's not like you guys have to work at that. Like, it's not the default, and you put a lot of effort into communicating and yeah. So, Finn, this is why you'll have job security for life.
I mean, I hope. Lord willing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When you guys first met, yeah, Finn, I hope you don't mind me sharing this.
Oh, go for it, man.
You guys didn't have sex for a while, right? Initially?
Right.
Was there like a strategy in that for you guys?
I was like, no, I don't trust you. Hold on. I need to slow down. I was just coming out of a phase in my life where I'd been like really wanting to pause on sex and dating when I met him. I was like, no, I'm not dating anybody and I'm not having sex with you. So just hang on a second. And it gave me space to really get to know him. And I wanted something different than what I'd been doing thus far at that time.
Yeah. I've heard a few people recommend like a strategy of even people who are like really regard themselves as sluts, that creating a little bit of space at the beginning of a relationship can be helpful.
It was really helpful in some ways, because I've had a lot of sex in the past prior to being with Finn, and dating people previously, it just like I would go to sex almost first, second time being with them, and it would lack this like ability to connect on a deeper level sometimes, because we would have such a intense, intimate experience, and that's like what I was holding on to, like and kind of seeking every time we'd have sex again. I was like, I'd want that same experience, and then eventually it'd start to like dwindle, and then we'd have to rely on other ways of connecting, and sometimes it worked out really well, and then other times it was like, okay, next, I'm not going to see you anymore. And I think deepening our emotional connection prior to sexual connection enabled us to just connect at an entirely new level than I had ever done previously. So I'm really grateful for it. And it also posed some challenges after. Yeah, connecting sexually was a little more challenging.
It was like bumpy after that.
I think I was definitely more in a performative space. So I would just kind of go into this mode like how I'd always done in the past, and
that I already saw through that.
He saw through that, and I'd be like,
put it down.
What do you mean? I'm
fine. I have some invested interest in the question because I've been dating a guy here in Palm Springs since October. It's now April. We haven't had sex. Part of that is because of the sobriety program that he's in. But I think we're kind of getting to a point where it was maybe like gonna happen. We started to do like naked massages and started to get a little bit more intimate. And then this happened. So now I don't see him at all other than virtually. I also wonder too if I think it's interesting. There's probably guys that are meeting during quarantine that are like FaceTiming and going on virtual dates that this is forcing them to not have sex for
Mhm.
a certain period of time before they like as they get to know each other. It'll be interesting to see what happens for them. I would love to film that. Someone having sex for the first time with each
Yeah.
other, a couple after
Oh,
quarantine.
yeah. That's cool.
If that's your case, let us know. We'll film that shit.
I mean, I'm hearing from people that I work with as clients and also friends that like the virtual experiences they're having right now contain a dimension of like connection for them that they've never experienced in even like apps and stuff before, because people are really vulnerable right now in general, so they're willing to share more, expose more about themselves. I had a friend telling me the other night about like he's like having amazing like tantric experiences just on like his phone with guys that he's meeting through Grinder, because it's like guys are like under this compression and they can't rely on the go-to, and they need connection, so they're just opening up.
It
And
forces them out of the routine. Like
yeah,
they're maybe
yeah.
more receptive to trying new things
And death fear lingering in the air for everybody. It's like, let's do this now. I want to tell you things. I want to show you things.
oh Lord. Yeah. So any other thoughts about the video? Any thoughts about how it applies to your life, or any kernels or wisdom that there was in there for you?
I think for people that want to try this, whether you're in a couple or in just a sexual friendship of any kind, like it's a really cool thing to do. And then if you want to deepen the practice, to like journal about it, like have an erotic journal that you keep this sort of stuff so you can track it, because it really helps you like know yourself better and also your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That singlet I have, by the way, that's in it.
Oh yeah, you wear it still sometimes, don't you?
I totally do. Yeah, I think it's so sexy. I definitely have a wrestling fetish or fantasy or something's going on there.
So he was wearing your singlet in the video. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think I bought it for this video,
Okay.
but I don't know if I wore it before or if I've just worn it since. But yeah, I have that singlet and it is still part of my life.
In the spirit of fantasy, are you willing to share like a fantasy that's been real for you lately?
Yeah, let me see.
I mean, I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one that
It's been coming from the quarantine files.
Yeah. Well, I definitely, and I think I've shared this. I have a fantasy of someone coming into my backyard and jerking off for me,
Uh-huh.
like come into my pool and like sit in my hot tub and like watch me through the window and jerk off. That'd be really hot. There was a couple who was quarantining at a house somewhere on my street, because on Grindr they were just like a couple 100 feet away, and they kept having sex in their backyard, and they kept saying like, peek over the fence, peek over the fence. But I wasn't like super into the dynamic, so that didn't happen. I have a general fantasy around any like power dynamics that are kind of taboo, like teacher and student, like situations where like that power could be abused. I think even part of the reason why I found The Man Behind the Suit, which is the video that's coming out in 2 weeks that we filmed through Zoom, that really turned me on. Like when we film, I'm usually in producer mode and like usually kind of in a professional headspace. But that video for me was fucking hot. And I think there was an element of like Caden kind of being the boss of Oliver, who's in the video, and like, oh, this is like sexual harassment, like this is,
Right.
like this shouldn't happen. And it does. And like part of that taboo naughtiness was like, I think part of why I was like starting to get really turned on by it.
Yeah, I think Caden's phenomenal with like his ability to like flow with like improv.
Yeah,
it's very believable.
And Oliver was very awkward, and so he seemed like the subordinate like employee, like he was nervous, and it really translated. Yeah. So I know, Sam, you haven't seen this, and so you're probably like, I don't know what they're talking about, but
no, I haven't.
Soon.
Yeah, it's coming. And it's hot. It's really hot.
It is, yeah. It is.
Yeah, those are kind of the fantasies that come to mind right now. But honestly, like I think I'm just so horny and like pent up in my house that like I was on a walk and my mask flew off and like I was like, oh my God, my nose is exposed to the like my nose is the new penis, you know, like, like, like yeah. All right, so let's answer some questions. Oh, Sam, did you have anything to add?
Fantasy wise, I have a lot. I think actually Finn maybe wrote a concept around it and something we had talked about like doing, but having him like give me missions to go and complete before like getting more with him. So just getting sent out and doing like puppy tasks has always been something that really like excites me. We talk about it frequently, and even just talking about it really just is fun. So,
and you get rewarded if you complete the tasks.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's more fun for me than like being the go do the task. I'm like, no, I just want to eat some cereal.
Yeah.
But
you're just tired at a certain point, right?
I have a sense of control that I enjoy to play with for sure. I had like fantasies around like when I was younger, like going out to the woods. Like there were like these trails that I used to go to, and would just jack off in the woods with guys. Like that always was like really fun and non-committal, and like really I could like bump in and bump out. It's like a safe social distancing kind of thing. That's been something that I've thought about lately.
Oh, I have one. I have a specific one. There's a couple that's renovating a house like the next street over, and one of the guys in the partnership, like he does not wear a shirt ever, and he's so fucking sexy, and he's always like doing yard work and like doing stuff out in the driveway. So I always go like out of my way to like they're not on my way home from anything. Like they're in the opposite direction. But I always go around the block to like see if they're there. And I go like really slowly as I bike by. Or if I'm jogging, I jog by. My fantasy is just to like I'm gonna be going by and checking in with him and he's gonna be like, hey, you wanna see the house that we're working on? You wanna come in? And him just ravaging me. All right. Answer some questions. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can send them to Davey at daveywavey.tv, or you can do what we love, which is call us on our hotline, and it is hot, 612-470-5729. That's 612-470-5729. All right, here's the first question.
Hi, I'm Colin from Texas, and I'm interested in the kink community. I was wondering what some of the models that you're interviewing, I assume, think is sexy about being either bound, gagged, blindfolded, or any kind of out of control scenario. What are their feelings about that? When does it feel safe? And how can it bring you closer to your partner?
Fun question. It's interesting because he asked why the models are turned on by it, and I suspect it's probably different for different models that we've worked with.
Yeah.
I haven't done a lot with rope work, but I've done a little bit, and I think the reason it makes me feel more connected to the person is because it's a very big act of trust. I mean, especially for if you're being tied up, it's trusting that person that they're not gonna. But like you're trusting them with your physical being, you're kind of helpless.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think the way the question was phrased too about the models, I can't answer for them. And, but I will say in general, like the idea again is meaning, underneath everyone has their own individual interaction with the social norms in which he was raised. So for some people that might be like, I'm too much and being tied up. Oh, I'm not too much anymore. Or I can't stop myself. And, oh, you stopped me. Or, there are all kinds of things, it's just like an emotional thing that's being overturned, and that it's not like the sensation and everything is an access to some internal thing. That's why not everybody really likes it. Certain people love it. Certain people don't. So it can bring you really close to your partner though, if you're revealing something that core and intrinsic about yourself and really being gotten there and being seen in that and appreciated, valued, and then like played with and engaged, then it's like, wow, someone really gets me in these places that I don't even know how to touch fully myself.
I think there's a part of me that is drawn to being tied up for the same reason that you like creating the tasks and not doing the tasks, which is like once you're tied up, like you don't have to do anything, you know, like and I feel like,
yeah,
like there's I don't know. Also, my job, I make decisions all day, and I'm just fucking sick and tired of making decisions. Like I just let someone else do it, you know.
Yep. Relinquish the control.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the feeling of helplessness in the body, like being bound where you can't utilize your limbs and stuff. It's like for some people it is like, when I was a child, I felt really helpless all the time. And so now I get to control being helpless, like tie me up. Oh, that feels amazing.
Yeah. So it is going to be different for different people.
Totally.
It's funny because when you see like executives portrayed in films where there's like BDSM, it's always like the big executive enjoys submitting. And I think there's like, not that I'm a big executive, but I do make a lot of decisions. And
I'm going to say I do make a lot of money.
I am sick of making decisions. And so like, I get that. Like, okay, someone else do it. Like,
yeah.
That resonates.
Yeah, it's like surrender, right? For you, like it's, and some people, like, let's say you don't really have that much assertiveness, well, maybe that doesn't really do anything for you to feel even less capable of being assertive. Maybe, like it's something that augments that sense of assertiveness for somebody. So it's just it's an inside job on everybody. And but I would say, there's a lot of stuff out there you can explore around it. Radical Ecstasy by Dossie Easton is super cool. The Heart of Dominance by Anton Fullman. Good places to start, kinkacademy.org. All
right. Am I going to tackle this really big question here? Should I do it?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I am proudly gay. I've known since the age of 7. Unfortunately, my first sexual experiences were at the age of 16 with a female, and this relationship lasted 5 years until I was 21. Every time I had to fantasize about the guys in the locker room or the models on the underwear packaging to get the deed done. I built an entire alternate personality to maintain this illusion. After the birth of my son and coming out and experiencing what I would call real sex with a man for the first time, this constructed alternate personality was destroyed rapidly. I realized how ashamed, dirty, even violated I felt from my heterosexual experiences and buried them deep inside, even trying to scramble or change my memories. I love my son dearly and would never change having him, maybe change the way he was conceived. I also left the church and started studying and practicing Wicca, the process learning that homosexuality is not a curse or abomination to God, but a gift from the Divine Mother to serve a higher purpose in sustaining life on this little blue planet. Now I'm in my 40s and I'm at the point that just hearing certain words referring to the female anatomy makes me physically sick. Hearing these terms used in gay porn often makes me lose focus, and I'll need to delete or otherwise block the video and have to start the arousal process all over again. The unfortunate thing is both my ex-husband and current husband throw these words around constantly in spite of me repeatedly asking them to stop. Even coworkers will throw these words around. Sometimes I think they all do it just to see a reaction to me. I try to hide it, but there's literally a gag reflex that sometimes can't be hidden, mainly because of the actual repressed sensory memories flashing to the surface. After listening to some bonus content, exploring Tantra, and researching other self-help therapy strategies, I know that these past experiences are part of my history, part of my identity, constructed or real. I know that in order to become whole, to heal my current sexual issues, energy blocks, and holdups, I need to integrate these experiences into myself and not isolate or segregate them any longer. Considering Finn's history, this may be more directed at him. Thank God. I don't know what the answer is. But my question is, how does one integrate, acknowledge, and constructively utilize these experiences without the intense physical revulsion? How do I deconstruct the good from these experiences and use them in my tantric healing process?
Wow.
So glad this question is directed at Finn.
I just want to say, and acknowledge, how much he's been through, where he's come from to where he's at now, and the awareness that he's gotten to. And from my experience, I know that the integration piece is a process. It takes time. And it sounds like he's on his way to doing that. And I'm sure you have way more to offer.
That's beautiful, though. I mean, I was going to say something similar, actually. Like, I think there's a lot there, and I'm curious about the strength of the revulsion response that he's describing. Like, oh, like this gag reflex, like something in that is like, what can't you stomach about this? Like, what is it that's really the emotional root for you? And I think I'm really grateful that you reached out to ask this. I think there's one thing, which is empathy, probably, that you still need around having, like, in a way, not on purpose, but abandon yourself, back in those days whenever maybe you were going along with something you're describing, like having to fantasize, having to like check out on yourself, having to leave the scene to get the deed done, quote unquote, like that sounds like a lot of like pain still there about just like checking out on yourself, leaving yourself, not trusting your intuition. And that sucks and that hurts. And then also, just needing to be compassionate about that. Like you did the best that you could, and here you are now. And then maybe shifting it to gratitude about like, wow, look at how you found tools for yourself along the way to help yourself grapple with truth and come out of it, because not everybody does. And some people fall underneath the force of like whatever they're wrestling with, and you made it out. So this like really honoring that and thanking the parts of you that reached out and found your way and clawed through. And then, maybe I still want to come back and say, like, check in with your revulsion around it. Like, what is that really about? And maybe just even some of this fantasy talk that we've had today could be helpful. Like, what does that mean to you? What does that symbolize to you? Those words, like if you were to jot out all the associations you have about those words, like on paper, and see if there's a theme there that could be helpful.
Because it's not the female anatomy that's the issue, because like it's neutral, like that. Those are body parts. And even as a gay man who I was a C-section, I've never touched a vagina in my life. I have no revulsion. Maybe initially I did, I think because I thought I needed to, like that to be gay meant that you were like disgusted by those body parts. And so when someone would talk about them, or when I was a cheerleader and like the girls would try to like show me their whatevers, I'd be like, ew, no, get it away. And now I'm kind of just like, well, whatever. I think I could even have sex with a woman just as like an experimental thing. And so again, this is not my department, and I'm not going to be able to give a clinical response, but like maybe, and I don't know if this is like even exposure therapy or something, but there's some really hot porn that's bisexual that has guys and women. Maybe there's some opportunity to recreate a relationship with vagina. And I think it's probably the violation of who he is that is represented by a vagina that is holding some power. But maybe there's a way for him to like reclaim that anatomy as something that's a little bit more exciting or fun.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea, actually, what you just said, like finding if there's some kind of eroticism there, like exploring it with inquiry versus like this, like, no, like a boundary, like test the boundary, see if there's something that you can find in it, like you're just describing. That's kind of an interesting idea. Yeah. All
right. Well, so that is all we have for today. Finn, where can people get more of you?
FinnDeerhart.com, FinnDeerhart.com.
And Sam, where can people get more of you?
SamSebastian.com.
Oh, I've never been to your website.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, and his new podcast.
Yeah. I started a new podcast called How Are You Doing Really? And it's on iTunes. So you can.
How many episodes are out?
One, and I have another one coming out on Sunday.
And is it just you, or is it different people?
It's me interviewing friends and people who are interested in sharing their stories around their present experience around the world pandemic and just whatever's coming up for them. Just really creating a safe space for people to share their stories, and hopefully listeners get to empathize and find compassion for themselves and for other people through the process of listening.
Cool. Yeah, and that must be a fun project to work on while quarantining. Like it's a good use of creativity. Yeah, definitely. And next week we will be back with a tantric hookup, which is one of my favorite videos. It's really, really good. And remember, you can join Himeros.tv for 20% off at Himeros.tv/pod. That's HIMEROS.tv/pod. And Wes Myers will be our guest co-host next week, who's in the video. So he'll give some really good perspective on that. Thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, more to come.
To come.